Hello and welcome. I have actually already called this meeting to order. Uh, Immediately prior to the board going into executive session to review the performance of a public employee, I called the meeting to order, so the meeting is already at order. We'll resume our agenda with our opening items in just a moment after we give folks a chance to join the Zoom. Okay, Director Jackson, if I can turn it over to you to the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. We live, work, and gather on native land. This is Snohomish land, and these are the homelands of many Coast Salish peoples. Around this region, Skagit, Tulalip, Lower Skagit, Swinomish, Snohomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish people have lived for uncountable generations. The tribes collectively affiliated with the Tulalip tribes have lived for uncountable generations. And much of what is here, the biodiversity, the ways, the health of our forests, fields, and sea, can be traced back to the loving stewardship of the Indigenous people who have come before us. We acknowledge this tribal history in part because there's something we can learn from the present about being in relationship with people and place. And understanding the history of what has taken place here helps us be better stewards of one another and the land that we share today. So please join us in expressing gratitude for those that have come before, those that are still here, for the tribal people for whom uncountable generations have called this land home. I would like to draw to your attention a couple of opportunities. Right now, we are approaching a month where we acknowledge Indigenous remembrance and the National Day of Remembrance of Indigenous Boarding Schools, which is coming up September 30th. Some people choose to wear an orange shirt on this day as a reminder to our Congresspeople about their responsibility to survivors of this trauma. There is a Truth and Healing Commission on Indian boarding school policies that has done some good work around what a pathway towards reparation and healing might look like. So I encourage those who are interested to research that act. And then we also have some opportunities to learn in our community. There is an organization called Native Connections working here on Whidbey that has brought together a couple of upcoming presentations, including one scheduled for Friday, October 11th, a Zoom about understanding the impacts of the United States Indian boarding schools. And so anyone who's interested in learning more about that opportunity can be in touch with me. My email address here at the school board is majackson@sw.wednet.edu. So please reach out if you'd like an introduction to the folks who are hosting that Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Jackson. I will note, as usual, this is a business meeting. That means it is a meeting of the school board in public. We do have an opportunity for public comment. That is comment from anyone here or on the Zoom. If you are here and would like to make public comment, please talk to Ms. Macaro. Sign up there before we get to that period of the meeting. If you'd like to make public comment and you're on Zoom, please use the Q&A function to note your first and last name and your general location, just the community that you're in, Langley, Freeland, whatever that might be. And just enter that at first, just so we know that you've got a comment, and then start typing up your comment and I will read it. All comments will remain within our public professional communications policy, policy 0002, which can be reviewed on our website. But in general, it means being respectful of everyone involved in the conversation and in the space that the conversation is happening in, and not making personal attacks, and being generally respectful of the dignity of all involved. We'll move on to our agenda and minutes. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and minutes as presented? Hearing none, the agenda and minutes are approved as presented. We'll move on to our student board member report.
Okay, to start it off with the high school, there's the Colorado Wrestling race, which there was a new record on the 5K course. First time the record's been broken since 1999. At 15:55, yeah. The middle school boys and girls teams both won as a team, and the high school boys team took first also. The welcome back assembly took place, letting team captains talk about their various sports, and the new ASB motto, Falcons, Let's Fly, was announced.
Volleyball is doing their practices at the community center because of the gym. And then also soccer is practicing, tennis is practicing, and so is football. And I believe they've all had their first like home games. Everyone is adjusted to their schedules and like in the routine of school. And it's also currently homecoming week. Today was toga day for the seniors and holiday block for everyone else. A couple of events got canceled, but they have been rescheduled for tomorrow. And homecoming will be this weekend with the theme being Meet Me in Paris. Also middle school. So middle school has Spirit Week this week. Tuesday was PE uniform day. Today was 80s day. Tomorrow is pajama day. And Friday will be blue and white day.
We don't have a report for the elementary school, but I would like to touch on the threat that was made. As you all know, there's a threat made to South Woodbury students a couple days ago. School shootings are something that really linger in the back of students' minds a lot these days. And then when a threat like this is made, it really brings it to the forefront of students' minds. And it really does have an effect on students. And you can feel that in the schools when you're there. We really need to make sure that we do not become desensitized to these events, and that we like recognize and consider the harm that it brings to students when these threats are made and when these events happen.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I felt that around the campus when I dropped my child off for school that day. I do want to give a major shout out to our staff and administration and everyone involved for doing everything they could to minimize the effect on particularly the younger students. My daughter had a fantastic day of school. She loved having some of the administrators that she knew very well out there to greet her and walk her in. They did a fantastic job of making it as normal as possible for them. So, and just like it is on students' minds, it is on parents' minds constantly. Thank you.
Do you hear any sentiment from students about what the district can do to help them feel more safe so they can focus on learning?
I would definitely say that giving the excusing absences for the day that was made was a really good decision, and it gave students like ease of mind that they don't have to go to school and be forced to put themselves almost in danger to continue their learning. I think that was a good move. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Normally don't use them. Hi, I'm Kelsey Baird. For those of you that don't know me, this would have been year 6 for me at the elementary school. And I I want to start by saying that this is something I'm really passionate about, population of students I get to work with, and I'm super incredibly emotionally attached to the situation. So with that being said, I'm here to share the facts that I experienced and not my feelings, but I know there's going to be some overlap. So the facts at the beginning of the school year were that I hadn't had a special education meeting at the district program or building level, and one hadn't been spoke of or called for, that no overload adjustment to special education case managers for the prior year had ever been paid, that I had been directed by administration to attend right response at the end of last school year and never received an answer from admin about the timesheet and therefore wasn't paid for it. I was required to complete my evaluation during my unpaid time by my administration. It had been 2.5 months since I had started the conversation about the elementary school caseloads for this year and the programs, and tried to be proactive in setting boundaries around my work expectations, including caseloads, lunches, preps, recesses, and release days due to my continued healing from open spinal decompression surgery and my ongoing health conditions of ADHD and unconnective tissue disorder. The district special education listening session, where case managers were supposed to be able to have their concerns heard from May 27th, 2004, was canceled and never rescheduled. I had a transfer student added to my caseload on the 19th of August who had 56% para support, and no additional support was added to the program. I emailed my administration and appropriate personnel per policy on August 25th about the 22.5 hours of special education paraeducator time being pulled per week from my program for explicit general education coverage during lunches, buses, and recesses. These paras were explicitly told that they could not supervise students needing one-on-one special education support during these times. And I was told this is how it's going to be this year. Just stop by and chat as concerns come up. This left me very concerned as I only had 5 hours of teacher-directed time left before the school year started. With adjustment, I had 31 students. That includes with weight. Our target overload is 25. The program grows between 5 and 10 students per year per the last 6 years of data. 4.5 hours per day, 22.5 a week was being pulled for general education supervision, and that the summation of all of the above is more than 1.0 FTE. I received no answer from my administration that evening or the next morning. And in the next morning, while in a crisis, I asked for and was granted an audience with my administration and was told that they had no idea about my concerns, and they asked for 24 hours to address the situation. This was on Wednesday, August 28th. My building administration was also made aware, and 24 hours passed and nothing was spoken to me about when or where the meeting would be held. I was incorrectly represented on the welcome back PowerPoint. I continued to wait to the end of my contract day, in which case I became significantly distressed and left. After leaving, I was told via email that the only adjustment that would be made was shifting the 4 resource level students off of my caseload. The decision was made without me present or represented. I received no communication about the meeting taking place. I was not called or emailed despite the 24-hour mark being passed. I asked the front desk several times if a meeting had been scheduled and when told there was nothing on the calendar. I was then sent an email that said, "I think this addresses your concerns. We'll see you on Tuesday." To be clear, I acknowledge, and your phone went to sleep, so I just can't see the timer, sorry. To be clear, I acknowledge with what most likely is a better understanding than most people in this room, that moving 4 students is in fact an action. I also understand that all educational staff is capable of experiencing burnout, but there appears to be a lack of concrete actions, leaving administrators where they are unable to fulfill requirements of their job responsibilities, including supporting their staff and therefore putting them in harm's way. Moreover, the base fact of the matter is that the only action being taken as of 0 paid hours prior to student arrival was to leave me still with an overloaded schedule and address no other of the explicitly stated concerns. The consequence of this left me and my staff without the ability to meet the changing needs of students that we serve throughout the day or honor their IEPs. My request is that I be able to rescind my resignation, as my resignation was actually not a resignation. I sent an email saying I was intending to resign, and then was told by my administration that it was effective immediately. And that's all I'd like to leave you guys with today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the comment.
I'm going to touch on a little bit of what Marnie talked about in the land acknowledgement. Oh, okay. I will try. A week ago Monday, I came across a reading by an Indigenous author who talked about looking at history, all kinds of history. And he gave a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. and basically said that we have the responsibility to look at all perspectives of history from different people groups. The Martin Luther King quote, "Our nation was born in genocide. We are perhaps the only nation which tried as a matter of national policy to wipe out its indigenous population. Moreover, we elevated that tragic experience into a noble crusade. Indeed, even today, we have not permitted ourselves to reject or feel remorse for this shameful episode." He goes on and says that we need to be carefully looking at our history and reevaluating it in the present day. So I pulled out my history posters, and last week, across the street from the high school and the middle school, I had my posters out. A parent came up to me and asked me if she could take my picture with each side of the posters. I talked a little bit with her, gave her some information of why I was out there and my background. And she told me that her family had just moved here from another school district in Island County, where her children were called the N-word. And then later on, she said that after the first week of school in our district, her kids came home and told her, "Mom, this is going to be okay. We like this district. It sounds like we're going to be okay here." I want to thank the board for the values and the goals that you set, keeping diversity, equity, and inclusion as a high priority. I want to thank every single member of the administration and staff for implementing those goals and those values. But I really want to thank our students for being on the front line and putting those values into action. I am just overwhelmed. I think you all need a huge, huge shout out for what this district is doing in being a leader and leading us forward. We may be small, but you guys are leading the way in this state. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Hello, my name is Koila Shepherd, and I'm with Woodby Island Living Legacy, a new nonprofit. And this is one of my colleagues there, our treasurer. And our goal is to get more housing, which we badly need. I have this article from the paper that says since the year 2000, we've dropped 50% of our school enrollment. Meanwhile, our population has risen by 17%. So this is crucial. I went to the meeting of the three, of Langley, Freeland, and Clinton. It was the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and the big thing discussed was there can't be any economic development without more housing. Some of the younger people in the chamber said their friends are already thinking about moving to Montana or someplace where they can own and buy a house. Our goal is to get property. It has to be in the city of Langley because it took 2 years to pass the housing zoning code in Langley for our tiny houses that are rented out now. County said they'll start working on it maybe in 2006, so it'll be 2007 before they even have a zoning. Right now, we're getting lots of calls of families who need housing. Today, it was reported that I think it was 57 children in the school district. Let me look. 97 children in the school district are not really housed. They're just sleeping one place or another. One family sleeping in their car still. So this is crucial that we can do something about it. I have the city map of Langley. I've contacted all the farmers that have land, 2 to 5 acres. No one has said yes, they would sell. That's no one, even though there's nothing on the farmland and it's vacant. So I'm appealing to the school district if by chance they would sell what was the football field behind the old school building, which is across from our tiny houses there. This would be land that we would purchase, we would put in sewer and power, and people would be able to put their own tiny houses on it. Tiny houses cost way less than a traditional house. They can be ordered even in kits now from Amazon with everything you need. We have a contract builder who helped with the tiny houses, who works with Hearts and Hammers, who will supervise. I can read you a little bit about tiny houses. They're green, they use less electricity, they have open space for all to enjoy. They cost 87% of a house, of an average house, which in Langley is quite a bit of money. It's over $500,000. 80% of tiny home owners carry less debt than the average U.S. citizen. About 40% of tiny house owners are older than 50, so that's your retired people. 55% of tiny house owners are women. A significant number of those are women who are single with children. My annuals prefer benefit of tiny houses instead of paying rent. You know, they can pay off their tiny house. Young adults and those in the workforce embrace tiny house living to avoid burdensome housing costs. Now, a tiny house can be 400 square feet on the main floor, 400 feet up. You could have your bedrooms up, your living space down. It's totally livable. Houses have gone up since before World War II of being 900 square feet with 4 kids, often living in the basement or the attic. So this is something I want you to consider if you would sell that old field for tiny houses. And I thank you.
Thank you for sharing the important work that you're doing on this critical problem in South Whitby. That's everyone who's signed up in person, and we do not have any Q&A notes here in the Zoom. So we're going to move on from public comment to our new business section. The first item on our new business action is Memorandum 242501, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 3241. Who wants to take the lead on this one?
Go ahead.
Dr.
There's
Marshall.
only one word change. We talked about this at the board's workshop. The only word changed on the board's policy is that we changed from expulsion to removal.
Thank you. Yes. And this is one that we updated significantly from what WASDA suggested the first time they suggested this. So this is
Yes,
the only
we are
thing that we're
we are
carrying through.
compliant. That's the only thing that, well, I should say the board workshopped it,
Mhm.
changed it to what it wanted it to be, and this is the only word change now.
Any comments or questions or debate from the board? Okay, I'd like advisory votes from our student representatives, if you please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Come on. All those in favor of approving memorandum 242501, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. The other new business item on our agenda is memorandum 242502, approval of the update to South Willoughby School District Policy 1250. Carter, would you like to address this one?
Yes. So basically, this one is just like putting in policy what we agreed at the last workshop, which was allowing what's it called student reps to vote on superintendents when time comes. I think it'd be good to just put it in policy, add something simple like including voting on and including superintendent votes. Just because policy is supposed to reflect culture, and I think this is a good thing to have as a part of our culture as a district. It also puts it forward, like, I don't know, it kind of shares it out there to the world more that this is something that we are doing. And it's kind of something on the forefront of student representation. And kind of just establishes that our school is leading in it. And it's not just something we're doing subtly, but something we're actually like really committed to.
Point of clarification, advisory votes.
Yes.
But yes. Otherwise, thank you. So this will need a motion to amend to change the language on this one. Would we like to make any discussions before any motions are made?
I have a point of procedure before that. Is the board able to, would this require a second reading? Can we get this all done tonight?
We discussed this at the workshop. So I believe that we can make this change here tonight.
Great, thank you.
Wait, clarify that again, because I was thinking we would have to take this to a workshop
Well, we had discussed it at
at
the
the
last
workshop,
workshop.
and then we're seeing the language now.
We're discussing the language, and we'll have to make a motion to amend this with the language that we like,
Okay, I'm just tracking. Thank you.
because we workshopped it at the last workshop, but we didn't come up with the specific language.
I'm wondering if instead of superintendent, it says personnel items. If it says, well, with advisory votes on agenda items, including personnel? Although you don't get an advisory vote.
On the consent agenda.
Yeah. So I guess it would be including the
Superintendent.
superintendent selection.
Yeah. And we're talking here the second paragraph, the second to last sentence. Student representatives provide the board with advisory votes on agenda items as follows. So the suggestion, I believe, that we're discussing at the moment before any motions are made would be making that student representatives provide the board with advisory votes on agenda items, including superintendent selection, as follows. Thoughts?
Having missed the last workshop, I will just reflect that I heard how much importance our student representatives place on this matter. And I do believe that superintendent selection is a categorically different kind of activity than personnel decisions. Because the superintendent is a position with so much power to shape tone and culture and student experience across the board. So I prefer the language of referencing the superintendent versus all personnel.
Yeah, I would +1 to that.
I would like to make an amendment. Please bear with me here. I move that we amend policy 1250 to include in its second to last sentence, student representatives provide the board with an advisory vote, with advisory votes on agenda items, including superintendent selection, as follows.
We have a motion. Since we are a small board, we do not need a second. Any discussion or debate on this item? Student representatives, can we have an advisory vote on this amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of amending this motion to include the updated language to the second to last sentence to read, student representatives provide the board with advisory votes on agenda items, including superintendent selection as follows. Please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Nay. The amendment passes. We will now go to the original motion as amended. Could I have advisory votes from our student representatives, please?
Wait, which amendment?
Oh, sorry. Let's be a little more clear, and I do need to give time for discussion or debate on this. We are now discussing once again the original motion as amended to include that language. Is there any debate or discussion to be had on that? Okay. Student representatives, could I have your advisory votes, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 242502 as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved as amended. Thank you. That completes our new business. I will turn it over to Mr. Field for our financial enrollment report.
Address.
All right, thank you. So this is going to be the enrollment report as counted on the first week of September. I can't see you guys here. So that's good. I don't know if I can move your guys' screen there, but we are roughly 40 students over our budgeted enrollment for BEA, so our basic ed. Alternative learning is right on with budget as of the September count. So we'll get a better idea of where this actually lands after the October count, but so far it's looking like we have a few extra students compared to budget. We'll deeper in the slides, we'll see compared to last year where we are, which is also up slightly from last year. Slightly under in our TK kids at 15, but they're still floating around there. So we'll see if we pick up any more of those. Special ed's pretty much in line, and our voc ed and bilingual programs are right in line with expectation. So this is the chart that we've seen updated for September. We're currently at that green dot. So this is compared to the average of last year. So that 138.11 compared to 122.29. That's all FTE. So that's the overall increase that we're seeing right now. So beating budgets, we're historically had a declining enrollment. So we're beating budget and we're slightly higher than last year and the last several years. So keep our fingers crossed it holds up through October, but we'll get a better idea after the second count how much of this is actually gonna stick. So this is comparison by month. So just the same slide, just a slightly different presentation. And then this is by grade. So if you follow the cohorts from first to second, so on that upward angle from 74, 56 to 80, and you keep doing that across the spectrum, you can see where we're picking up students. We picked up quite a few between 4th and 5th grade and between 3rd and 4th. So in that middle 3rd to 8th grade band is where we've picked up the majority of the students compared to last year with this preliminary count. Again, this is preliminary and it's our current enrollment compared to our annual average of the prior years. So overall, it's welcome good news.
And I didn't prompt you with this, so if you don't have information on it,
yeah,
please feel free to tell me. You can get that information to me later. But do you have preliminary indications on where these students are coming from?
So we'll really look into that after the October count. It's harder to do in September as the information's being updated so readily as we get from September to October. But after the October count, we'll really look to where they came from to further verify that it is real, because we all know come January when they adjust our enrollment, we want to make sure that we can count on that before we make significant plans in staffing. So we definitely will verify who left and who came and where they came from to make sure that it's really gonna stick before we make significant plans changes, if any are required. So any questions on the enrollment before I move on to the financials? Great. So this is our unaudited August 31st balance. These numbers will likely change, but I want to give you the snapshot as it sits today. As I continue to go through the year and process, it will change slightly, but not materially. So 100% of our timeline, we were 102.3% over on revenue and 99.6% of our expenditures. So we're still right up against our original budget. This isn't reflecting the budget extension that we passed. So we're still have some room if we have to accrue expenses to make, and those expenditures go up, to be fine. But we're coming right underneath our original adopted budget. And those are our trend lines underneath are laying right on top of each other, pretty much like they have all year. Slightly less expenditures. That black line on the right column may tick back up as we adjust our expenditures through the close process. So we were under on our MSOCs, or spent 83% of our MSOCs budget and 102% of our salaries. And like our previous conversations, a lot of that cost is related to special ed cost, and then TK wasn't budgeted. So the salary and staff at TK kind of drove us over on that salary piece. And then in total, yeah, right there at 99.6% of our budget. This is the revenue and expense line. Again, our pattern's been so very consistent year over year. There wasn't any unexpected changes in this trend. And then our fund balance percentage, as we sit right now on this, likely will change. We're sitting at 24.3%. In that far right August column is where we've landed in the historical years. And this is our budget status. I brought this slide in. We don't typically discuss it, but just to show where the revenue, we had the overages in the revenue, and then where we were on our expenditures by program. Other funds are bumping right along. Capital starting to get some more expenditures with Scott here directing projects. We're spending a lot more capital levy dollars than we have in the past, getting stuff done over the summer. And then the bond fund balance, or the capital fund balance, is so much higher because we've passed the bond, and that's landing, sitting there in the fund balance now. Everything else kind of went right along as normal. ASB had a good year, increasing their fund balance. Saw a lot more ASB cards and participation fees coming out of COVID. It's a good sign, and been working with the students closing out this year to get their reports cleaned up and making a plan to roll it out in the future. So here in a couple months, they'll likely be coming back to give a board a presentation specifically about their budgeting process, which is different than mine for the state, but more specific for their plan with their funds, what they're going to do this year. And with that, I will field any questions.
Not a question. I guess there's a question. The local support non-tax revenue, that's increased rentals at the community center for the most part?
Rentals at community center, we beat budget largely because the interest rates were so well. Carrying that fund balance, it throws off more interest. And then there were some more in-school sales that happens. That just fluctuates depending on what's going on at the buildings. But those are the two main drivers there. The rentals at the community center, which we were fully occupied and did well. And then, yeah, interest in sales in the building.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Field. I'm
just have one other thing that's on the horizon. I want to let you guys know. It's very preliminary, but there's word coming out that TK funding may run out in March, that there's more students across the state enrolled in the transitional kindergarten program, and the state has not quite budgeted enough funds. And right now they're estimating by March, funding could potentially roll out. OSPI has not made an official statement on this yet, but that is the grumblings coming through our professional channels. So we'll keep an eye on it. Our program's not going to go away. We will fund it through the year and then look to the legislature to make sure that they get it fully funded going forward. But more to come on that. And as soon as we hear anything else, we'll pass it along. But Joe and I both have gone through our channels to see how much more traction, but that's all we can really get right now, is it's estimated to expire in March.
Thank you for that. That's something that we will have to speak with our legislators about to ensure that since they were so good about fighting for it for us this year, to make sure that it continues. Thank you. And I'm so overjoyed to see enrollment up. That's fantastic. I look forward to hearing where we think that's coming from and seeing how we can continue that trend if possible. Okay, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. Welcome to our folks in the audience. I think you're here to possibly hear about the follow-up from last meeting, and the port let us know that they were not ready to provide the board with any information. So we have no update on that at this time. Along the lines, though, of Koila Shepherd's comments, I have been hearing from others about housing, and we're a presence at the table, but again, it's to be present as opposed to being the driver of any of the work, but wanting to definitely help. I want to thank John Summer for his leadership as our Director of Safety. He's also our Director of Athletics, but his Director of Safety role was the focus on Monday. And I also want to thank the students for their comments. Our staff, everybody is on edge. And being able to have his leadership was really helpful. Law enforcement was here. We really got a lot of folks come to our aid. And moving on to enrollment, cautiously optimistic. It's a really good feeling. Tomorrow, Representative Clyde Shavers will be in the district from 11 to 1. He'll be here specifically to see the solar panel installation that was done and our electric bus, and also taking a look at our schools that need renovation. He is looking to improve what schools across the region will receive in terms of funding for renovation. I want to invite folks next week, next Wednesday, in this room at 6:30. There will be a presentation on the high school field and what may occur on that site because of the bond regarding what the football field will become in terms of its surface. So that conversation happens and everyone's invited. We will also be recording it, so if you can't be present, you'll be able to review it afterwards. As you heard, bond and levy work is underway. Again, Scott Peacock taking a very active role in moving things forward. Our gymnasium is in the process of being painted and the flooring is in there to be acclimated, and new bleachers will be coming, and we've been talking about the logo, and students will be involved in the selection of what that logo will look like. I'm, again, cautiously optimistic that we'll play some basketball games in that gym, but I don't want to promise. The majority of that is actually funded by insurance, but we've also taken the opportunity to make some improvements that will be part of the levy funding. So next month on the board's agenda, we'll hear about the school improvement plans as well as the district goals and the action plans around those goals. And I know board members will update you, but the search consultants will also be back next month. So that's what I have for the superintendent's update.
Thank you very much. We'll use that neat transition to the superintendent search update to our liaisons.
Thank you. So Director Downs and I are the liaisons to HYA, the superintendent search firm. They unfortunately couldn't make it today, so I'm providing an update on their behalf, or both of us are providing an update on their behalf, but I'm starting. HYA spent 2 days here in the district, Wednesday and Thursday last week. During that time, they personally met with about 70 constituents. That included staff, students, families, and community members. And they wanted to pass along a huge thank you to Ms. Macaro for doing all the scheduling of all those events. The survey has launched. It will remain open until October 4th. There's already a few dozen responses, which is a good start, but we'd ideally like many more. So please, if you haven't already taken it yourself, please do. And if you have, please remind folks you know to please take it. Their HYA's goal is 10% student participation, but I think we can do much better considering that it's going to be sent out during advisory. So I think y'all will crush the 10% goal.
And where can they find that survey?
Oh, thank you. It's on the district webpage, and then from the homepage, there's a link. Oh, look at this. It's on the screen right now. So yeah, you see that link right there, superintendent search, and then there's that big old button, superintendent search survey. And if you're having trouble navigating the website, please speak with any of us or Ms. Macaro who can help you out with that. As they're collecting this data, the focus groups and the meetings and the survey, they're building what's called a leadership profile report, LPR for short. It's essentially a summary of what they're hearing about the ideal candidate. And so they're in the process of preparing that, and we'll have it for us at our October 23rd board meeting. They're already doing recruitment. They actually already have candidates who have started to apply for the role, and they're continuing to reach out and field calls about the position. Director Downs and I have started a regular meeting with them. We have it scheduled weekly so that at the very least we could meet bi-weekly. We're just sort of under promising and over delivering in terms of our meeting time. And then looking forwards for the rest of the process, I just mentioned the October 23rd leadership profile. On the November 13th, they will be here to give a search update at our workshop. November 25th is when the position closes, so we'll kind of know who our candidates are by then. December 11th, we'll go into an executive session to hear about the candidates. The idea is that that's kept in confidence so that these candidates, it's not divulged to their current districts at that part of the workshop. We'll start to work on the interview questions that we want to ask and the interview process. January 8th, we'll have another executive session where we do semifinalists interviews. And we will narrow from the semifinalists to about 2 to 4 finalists. And then we're looking at the exact day, but those finalists will come to the district for a day to meet and do sort of like a rotation. We're looking at Wednesday, January 15th. The idea that it being a shorter day, that would give faculty and staff more opportunity to be free to meet with the candidates. But they will also do school tours, facilities and operations, meeting with the community members and other constituent groups, and Q&A. And that would be also the board's opportunity to meet in depth with the finalists in the evening. It'll be a very long day, but the idea with one day is it'll be less stress on the district to meet with candidates day after day. We just get it all done in one day. And then immediately following that, as soon as possible, the board would have an opportunity to discuss an executive session and then vote in a public meeting.
And we had discussed with the consultants a variety of ways of doing that, but we felt kind of knowing our board and knowing how many introverts we have on the board, that it might be helpful for us to go home, sleep, and then come back to discuss the candidates and vote from there.
I think that's a fantastic idea to take a breath after a full day of peopling. Yes. Thank you.
And it gives opportunity to sleep on a very important decision. So we have penciled in Wednesday, January 15th with HYA. We obviously will want to make sure it works with the district and with the board. So please let me know if you have a conflict on Wednesday, January 15th.
Be both the 15th and the 16th.
Thank you. Yeah, 15th for the finalist interviews and tours, and 16th for an executive session and specially scheduled board business meeting. Director Downs, did I miss anything? All right. And that is the superintendent search report.
Thank you very much. Any other board comments or reports?
I would like to share some information and a request related to legislative advocacy. Thank you. We have an opportunity coming up with WASDA, the Washington State School Directors Association, to let them know what our board feels should be their priorities in the upcoming legislative position adoption work that's going to be taking place. There is a form that they've shared. You've likely received it via email. It is an opportunity for one board member to submit on behalf of our full board about our top 10, not ranked, but just our top 10 priority topics, including ones that we might choose from their various adopted legislative positions, which they've provided in this same email. They've also provided a tool for boards, which is the board member top 10 collection sheet. And it is formatted so that each board member has an opportunity to rank their own preferences on a sheet and then provide that to the compiling member, which would be me in this case. And so if I receive those sheets from each of you without discussion, I'll math it and use whatever the collective priorities are to submit our joint form. And so the deadline for the submission of the form is October 8th. My request would be that if you could get to me by October 7th, if you care to have input, that you do so. And I likely will not reply because I don't want to discuss it outside the meeting. I just want to receive your perspectives and integrate them. Thank you.
And to be clear, student representatives are,
Yes, I am
ask them to
asking
join in.
for perspectives from student and elected board members. And I will integrate all of these perspectives, including student ones, before submitting our form. Thank you. I also just wanted to mention that I was away during the WASDA General Assembly, and I understand that Director Greenherron shared some reflections and thoughts about the topics under discussion for General Assembly in advance of my trip. I also understand that Directors Johnson and Williford may have participated, and so I would love to hear an update about that from any of you who wish to share.
that was next on my list. Yes. Thank you to most of the people who spoke for checking off most of the things on the list of things I wanted to get to. The General Assembly is the last one on there. I was able to participate for all but about 3 or 4 of the votes of 39, I believe it was. The General Assembly is where the Washington State School Directors Association gets together and basically has their own school board meeting where they vote up or down positions and bylaws. So bylaws would be like our policies. And so those are the things that guide WASDA, and those require a 2/3 majority of membership districts, 1 vote per district, in order to be adopted. And the positions are what feed into how they lobbied to the legislature, to OSPI, and to other government entities, what the association's priorities are going forward. So there were a few bylaws that were voted on and a great number of positions. Overall, a significant number of them were requests or proposals which would have required WASDA to oppose even some helpful legislation, just because they would have required WASDA to oppose anything that changed local control or supported unfunded mandates, or there were a dozen or more various different items. And all of them would have restricted the ability of WASDA to support positive change, even if it wasn't everything that WASDA wanted it to be. Those were all voted down. Unfortunately, the suggestion that South Whidbey chimed in on, and I spoke at the General Assembly in favor of, to have student representatives on each of the WASDA boards did not meet the 66.666 repeating required votes. It had about 54%. Unfortunately, a lot of the con statements were about we need to be the adults in the room and make decisions for the children. And they came in the vast majority from boards that did not have student representatives. So what all this means is that the bylaw was not adopted. It is not in policy that WASDA must do this. We can still talk to WASDA and lobby for them to do this without a bylaw, to just bring students onto these boards, student representatives onto these boards. I expect that there will be some movement in that direction anyhow. Carter, do you want to?
And having spoken with a couple of student rep network members, I think that's the direction they're probably going to end up taking this now, given that that didn't pass.
Yeah, I think that that's the direction we should be taking it, talking to WASDA leadership in order to enact this, because they can enact it without a bylaw in support of it. And then also, I think that we should be talking to those boards that do not have student representatives and continuing to evangelize the benefits of having students on as representatives on the school board, because I think it is telling that those who spoke out against this did not have student representatives on their board. Let's see here. There was an attempt to turn the equity statement into based on personal circumstances rather than a list of protected classes and other situations. That failed. The positions raised the emphasis from WASDA, or raised the suggested emphasis in WASDA lobbying on infrastructure and climate mitigation forces. There's a position that changes or defines amply funding education as fully sufficient and more than adequate, so that it's not just the bare minimum. There was a position to lobby for legislation to mean that money that is earmarked for schools is additive to what is given to schools, rather than they've got a new source of funding that is earmarked for schools. So let's take some of this other funding that's going to schools and put it somewhere else, because that doesn't really do what the additional funding is supposed to. So in general, I was generally positive on the votes that happened. There were a few I was disappointed in, particularly the student representative one, but I am hopeful that that is not the end of that one, that we can push to have it happen without the bylaw, and then perhaps see if we can get the bylaw adopted next year. That's all I have. Any other?
Just one question. A couple of board members raised the idea of attending the February 8th, which is a Saturday convening. And it's open for registration. That's the Network for EdWork. And that came through in your email. I know that in order to get us registered, we would need folks to say yes. There is some professional development funding set aside for board members, so this would be an expense covered by the district. If you are interested in attending, please let Christy know. If you know now, you can certainly just say it.
And it is relatively minimal. It's like $125
Yeah,
each.
it's
very
very
small.
inexpensive. It is at Shoreline. And it's a full day on Saturday, February 8th, 2025.
Thank you for raising that. I attended the convening 2 years ago, and I found it to be a very enriching experience. You may remember Network for EdWork as the organization that brought us professional development training several years ago. They are a division of the Technology Access Foundation, which just does extraordinary work. And the year I attended was the inaugural convening, and I felt like the content and culture was extraordinary, and the administration and execution was on a learning curve. And so I just imagine that now 3 years in, they are going to ace it, and I will love to attend. Thank you.
I did forget one other important thing from the General Assembly. There was a position to include substitutes and mandated leave and MSOCs into state apportionment, which I think would be fantastic for funding if we can get it to happen. Okay, any other board comments or reports? Thank you very much. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.